Okay, Geeta Dhyan. Om. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us, O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. And the milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, the bestower of supreme, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
Let's see. So Lord Krishna answers Arjuna's question. He begins to answer his question. There we go. And do you remember what the question was?
It was a doozy.
Yeah, part of it.
He asked partly about karma, partly about what is Brahman.
Yeah, he started with Brahman, right? He started with Brahman.
Yeah.
It's actually, as it were, a logical order to the question, right? He starts with the biggest.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh.
How do you keep the consciousness of God in your mind at the hour of death?
Absolutely, and that was the close. That was the last part of the question. Oh, so this morning, we haven't picked up this Holy Gita, Swami Chinmayananda, for a little bit. And this question of imperishable Brahman, we want to consult. So, just coming back to the third, where Lord Krishna answers, third and fourth, beautiful. Answers here together. So here's the answer to the question. Brahman is imperishable, the supreme. His essential nature is called self-knowledge. The offering, the creative force that causes beings to spring forth into manifestation, is called work, karma. Adibhuta, or elements, constitutes my perishable nature, and the indweller, or the essence, is Adi Daivata. I alone am the Adi Jnana here, in this body, O best of the embodied. So Swamiji will break this down a bit for us, and it's worthwhile to do. We come back to the concept later, but this is the direct answer to the question that we've been exploring in the Upanishads as well. We'll pick back up today. Mataji is unable to join us today, so we'll have Katha Upanishad today, and we're in exactly this place where Lord Yama is answering the question about who is Brahman and what is this Atman. It's the same question, isn't it? Yeah. So here is also the answer coming from the Upanishads, but here through the lips of Lord Krishna. First, breaking it down, imperishable is the supreme Brahman. The term Brahman indicates the one changeless and imperishable subjective essence behind the phenomenal world. So here he's defining the term Brahman. What does it mean? Do we catch it? The one, that which the scientists are looking for. And it's not actually defined other than saying the name for it is. So the term Brahman indicates, points to that one changeless and imperishable subjective. What does subjective mean?
The cognizer of experiences.
Who's the subject here? Come on. Who's the subject? Who's the subject?
We are.
I am. Is it so?
Yeah.
It's not a trick question. It might seem like it. It's the one we always forget somehow, even though we put it at the center of everything. So, okay. It becomes the self, the conscious principle, which illumines the body, mind, and intellect during all their pilgrimages from birth to death through the infinite varieties of their vicissitudes, their whatever their life experiences and life goals and such are. So, the one changeless and imperishable subjective essence behind the phenomenal world, and then it becomes the self, capital S self, the conscious principle which illumines the body, the mind, and the intellect during all of their pilgrimages from birth to death through the infinite varieties of their vicissitudes. So whatever we do. So Brahman, he's answering, he's expounding on what Lord Krishna has said. Brahman, as it were, becomes the self, which is the experiencer of all of the stuff that we're doing here. Mental stuff, intellectual stuff. You catch it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Its presence in each individual body. Its presence in each individual body. And this is the question, and this is the exploration. So, its presence in each individual body is called Adhyatma. Atma. There's the term Atma for us. Adhyatma. Though the self is formless and subtle and therefore all-pervading, its glory and might, power and grace are felt, experienced, and lived by each physical structure. And this self expressing itself through a given embodiment, as though conditioned by it, is called the Adhyatma. So it's speaking to our lived experience here. Are we listening? So one more time. It's important. Its presence, Brahman's presence, in each individual body is called Adhyatma. That's one of the questions that Arjuna asked. Though the self is formless and subtle, like the fire, right, which appears a certain way because of the wick and the oil, and the fire seems to be conditioned by the wick and the oil, but it's not. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
The wick and the oil don't affect the fire whatsoever. The fire exists whether you can see it or not. It exists within the constraints of this light that you see here, and it also exists without. It exists in the wood already. Right? Okay. And it's not conditioned by the wood? It's not conditioned by the wick? Okay. Though the self is formless and subtle and therefore all-pervading, its glory and might, power and grace are felt, experienced, and lived by each physical structure. And this self, expressing itself through a given embodiment, as though conditioned by it, is called Adhyatma. Shankara brings it out very clearly when he explains the term as the principle that graces all bodies as their essential self. So, universal principle, which in relationship with this body provides the life for this body and also the feeling that I am here in this body. Work is not the only not only the turnover. Now work, he's moved on to karma. Work is not only the turnover can be ordered and brought about by sheer labor. The term work means something deeper, subtler, diviner. The creative urge that is behind every active intellect. Do you notice that? Can you catch it? The creative urge that is behind every active intellect. You catch it? To do something. Yes? You catch it?
Doer.
Yeah. So here, Swami Chinmayananda is very much the scientist. So he's actually exploring in great detail what it is that Lord Krishna is answering. But if you can personalize it, if you can bring this to your own lived experience, you can catch something from it, which through grace will blossom.
He's talking about the rajas?
He's talking about something deeper than that.
So if there's ever
It's not, and don't objectify it either. What he's sharing, don't objectify it. Allow it to be something very near and dear to the center of you. Something that you're feeling at the center of your being, not in expression. An urge towards expression. Call it that. Maybe you can relate to it that way. An urge towards expression is this creative impulse to do or to say or to make a mark or to, right, to teach people, right, whatever it is, to serve. So that urge is being said to be Brahman. Here, he's speaking of karma, and this karma as coming from that absolute. So he says, the creative urge that is behind every active intellect, which ultimately fulfills itself in the creation of things and beings, that subtle spiritual strength is called karma. That subtle spiritual strength. So that which functions underlying the urge for procreation, for example. That which is underlying the urge to make something or put some mark on something. That all of us feel. That urge to fix the world. That which is underlying that.
Wow, this would be highly practical if we could just catch that in the moment, I guess, right?
Well, it's not a problem, it's what it is. It's not a problem. It only begins to become what we call a problem when this urge is getting mixed up with I-ness and mindness. That's the only time it starts to be what we could call a problem. So here we talk about karma. Swamiji is going to, what is that urge towards karma? What is that urge to act? Or to not act? It's the same. When action is called for and we feel an urge not to act, that's there's an urge underlying, very deep, underlying the mind. You catch it? No? Okay. He's actually saying that's karma.
Wait, how's it?
And that is the Lord manifesting here, as if. Where does that urge come from? It's a universal urge. Every squirrel has it, every leaf has it, every blade of grass has it, yes?
Yeah.
The sun has it. The sun has the urge to shine, doesn't it?
Doesn't it just do it? Why does it have to urge to do it? Isn't it just spontaneous?
Because the urge is there, it's spontaneous.
Oh, okay. Makes sense.
Because the urge is there with the blade of grass, it's spontaneous. That when the sun and the moisture come, that chemical reaction happens.
So
in the same way, having taken birth, there's an urge to do, isn't there?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I was thinking like
So he's going very deep.
a soulless being would not have any of these urges.
Correct. There's an urge to do.
Yeah.
Very good, Kartikeya. Very good. There's not an urge to be, there's an urge to do. That's karma. Swamiji is saying that urge is karma. Oh, okay. He says, all else is mere sweat and toil, dust and blood, heaving and sobbing, smiling and singing, hoarding and wasting. So everything that comes from it is just whatever. But that urge itself, we probably haven't heard this before. Because we talk about karma yoga all the time. This is why we wanted to pick up Swamiji this morning and see what he has to say about this. Very much the scientist, very much going to the heart of the matter. So, can you catch it? It's not the thing that you do that's karma. The thing that you do is karmic, but what is the center? Where does it start? And who does it start in? It's universal, isn't it? The urge. It's universal. In delusion, it gets perverted, the urge, to what can I do for myself to be happy?
I get it.
Okay. But it exists as a pure force. Because for the saint, it's an urge still to do, but it's not perverted.
And that's why we have to purify,
Yeah.
so that we can translate the pure essence of that urge
Right.
through this body.
Right. Because we'll see in nature, regardless of whether the interest is self-centered or selfless or no interest at all, as in the case of the grass, no self-interest, no selfless interest. The sun, no self-interest, no selfless interest, but still the urge is there. And what's being shared is a very deep look at what is this karma? What is this action? It starts with an urge to action, and Swamiji is differentiating here that that's actually karma. When we talk about karma here, that's karma. It's not what you do. It starts with that urge. Does that make sense? And where does that urge come from? So you see, again, tat. The Lord is describing his, her, its nature. And one of the questions that Arjuna asked is karma. And so getting to the heart of the matter, the urge comes from the absolute. It's a quality of the absolute. It's within you and everything here. So Lord appearing as karma. And we see this world is constant motion. Do you see that urge is in the atom? Why else would it spin?
I saw a video on even the little cells in our body and these little workers doing all these little things in the cell, making it work.
Oh. And there is also an urge towards peace, which is, and we get there. We'll see how far we get this morning on these two shlokas. So can we catch a little bit of what Swamiji is describing? He says work is not only the turnover, it's not the thing that's done. This karma. The turnover can be ordered and brought about by sheer labor. The term work connotes something deeper, subtler, diviner. Are we touching that some here? Ari? Yeah.
You have to look at.
And you can see it at work within you, right? And it even pre-exists the notion of what to do, doesn't it? And even the notion of why I'm going to do. Right? This urge to do is underlying everything. Sorry, Gopal.
Oh, I was just asking, wouldn't the karma only start with the motive?
See, you've got to find what's being talked about in yourself, Gopala.
Yeah.
Don't try to intellectualize it so much. Allow yourself to experience it within yourself. And then just touch it. Just be aware of it. Don't try to explain it. It's ineffable. You can't explain it other than you can say it's there. And it's universal. Right? And so whose is it? Here where Swamiji says more divine. More divine. The creative urge that is behind every active intellect which ultimately fulfills itself in the creation of things and beings, that subtle spiritual strength is called karma. And then he says everything else is sweat and toil, and it's just the stuff that's happening. Okay. And then, Adibhuta. Adibhuta is the perishable existence. As a contrast to the imperishable, akshara, is the perishable equipment, kshara. The world of prakriti, so nature, this experiential plane, through which the potential dynamism, vigor, and glory of the infinite self expresses themselves. Between the kshara, that is the perishable, and akshara, the imperishable, there is as much difference as between a steam engine and the steam, a running car and the horsepower and the petrol, a singing radio and the electric current that makes it possible for the radio to sing. Or we could say the electricity in the wires in which you can plug an air cleaner and the air cleaner will function. In short, by the term perishable, the whole world of phenomenon of the universe is indicated. Subjectively, the equipments of cognition, feeling, and perception constitute in the main the destructible or the perishable factors in us. Another way to say. So the perishable, meaning everything here that's changing, also arising from the absolute, through which the imperishable is functioning, as it were. Okay.
Can you repeat that? I was lost in thought. Sorry.
Yes, you are. You're still on the same other thing.
Oh no, I was thinking about ink. I was on.
You were on ink. You're just completely gone.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being honest. Here, we'll just answer it this way. The adibhuta is the perishable existence. So this life, what we call life, this life, adibhuta. And then he says, as a contrast to the imperishable, akshara is this perishable equipment, kshara, the world of prakriti through which the potential expresses itself. The fire expresses itself through every form. That's what's being said. Okay. The equipment, meaning the wick and the oil and the lamp, are perishable. Is it correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's adibhuta. That was the answer to that question. That's adibhuta. Where did it come from? What's it made of?
Right.
The only construction material there is, the imperishable. The fire is the potential for that flame. Does that make sense? The fire is the potential for that flame. The fire pre-exists this particular flame.
That's like
It exists as potential. How do you know it exists as potential? Because if you take a blowtorch to anything, it has the potential to combust, correct? So the fire pre-exists in the imperishable. The fire pre-exists in that which is perishable, the equipment. Okay.
Wow.
The fire here, Brahman, Krishna, exists as the imperishable in the perishable equipment, in relationship with that which is perishable. Okay. Adidaiva is the indweller. The term indweller, adidaiva, is used to indicate the special faculty that presides over each apparatus of knowledge and activity in the living creatures. The presiding deities of the sense organs, of the mind, of the intellect are called devatas, which are nothing other than the faculty of vision in the eyes, the faculty of audition in the ears, the power of smelling in the nose, and so on. So break this down to our lived experience. So the eternal is observing this entire experience. So the sights, the smells, the thoughts, the desires, all of this, someone's observing all of this. You call it I, I'm observing. That's I is the eternal. That I is Adidaiva. Adidaiva. That's the name. You don't need to memorize it. But you'll hear it in pujas, etc. When we're with a priest who's really trained, we'll hear.
Swami
Yeah, absolutely. Adidaiva. Yeah, we hear so he's speaking of the equipment and Purusha, the absolute. But this Purusha is the I. It is the I. It exists independent of the equipment, but in relationship with the equipment, it becomes the enjoyer or the observer. So you hear me through what?
Through the ears.
Through the ears. Okay. Swamiji here says that power of hearing is controlled by one of the devas, shop foreman. So that's how you hear. Well, who are you to hear? That's I. That's Purusha. The ears are not hearing, correct? The brain is hearing, but who is hearing the brain? Okay. We'll complete. Adiyanya, here in this body, I alone am. So this is how he's defining it. Adiyanya, one of the statements, one of the answers. Here in this body, I alone am. Here in this body, I alone am.
Yeah.
Here in this body, I alone am. Is someone else here in this body?
Personality.
There is not anything else in this body, but there is there's the clouds. Or there's the illusion.
My God, you know, you're sitting in a theater right now. You're the one and only audience. But you are the audience, aren't you? To everything that happens here. And where is the theater? It's as if inside this body, isn't it? Can you right now observe the stomach and what's happening in the stomach and the digestion and any gas that's coming, any movement within it? Can you observe the pulse of the blood in the veins? Can you observe the breath? Can you observe the faculty of sight? Can you observe the faculty of hearing? Can you observe the faculty of touch? Can you observe the faculty of smelling? Can you right now observe the faculty of taste through tasting whatever is there present in the mouth? This is the theater. All of this perishable equipment is the theater. And you are observing it all, aren't you? You're sitting in the middle of the theater, aren't you? In this body, I alone am. We have already seen that the yanya here means the act of perception, feeling, or thought. You see, that's what we're just now talking about. Yanya, pilgrimage. Remember the term yanya? Pilgrimage. What is this pilgrimage that we're on? Do you see it's taking place in this body? Yes? And what is happening? I alone am present for.
Gathering experiences for the source.
Yeah. In fact, you could say for I.
Yeah.
Yes? As in the yanya, here also oblations, the sense objects, are poured into the yanya, the altar, the sense organs, when the devata, the particular faculty in it, gets propitiated and invoked, and a blessing from it we gain, and as a blessing from it, we gain the fruit thereof, that is the knowledge of the perception. An interesting way of considering this life and what's happening. It's a divine way of considering what's this life and what's happening. So the warmth from the heater is poured into the altar of the touch, the skin. And the skin, that sense of touch, feels the warmth. Is it so? So that's the oblation, what do you say? Being poured into the receptacle, the sense organ, touch, right? Feels warm. Outside it feels colder. Yes? And so how is that function? How is that functioning? How is that feeling here? How is it that this feeling exists? How does the feeling of warmth exist?
Well, I'd have to think
Can you
about
touch
it.
some of but maybe if you're just present, you can feel the divinity of it all.
The meat and the cash of the body.
How does it exist? And what purpose does it serve? Who is it serving? I, isn't it?
Help preserve our
right? Apparently, something like entertainment, Kartikeya. Something more like entertainment than saying to serve the bodies. So all of this pilgrimage, what's the purpose of the pilgrimage?
Entertainment.
It's all about I, isn't it? Is it a little I or is it a universal I?
Well, I guess they couldn't serve one thought, because then the thought vanishes.
It's not serving the thought.
Yeah, that wouldn't make sense.
The thought is serving what?
It serves the universal I.
It serves the universal I,
Yeah, that makes sense.
which is at the center of all of this.
Mhm.
We're trying to preserve our bodies in the way so we can keep experiencing it.
Om Kartikeya, Om. So, when invoked, and when is it invoked? It's invoked through the act of perceiving through the sense organ, the sense object. So this is invoked, right? Like a puja. In this adi yanya, in the subjective yanya, act of perception, it is quite evident that the one vital factor that dominates the entire activity is the self, the principle of life. So if we're catching some of what's being shared here, then it becomes evident that all of this exists part and parcel to, but also for the I. Subject, I, me, I. Does that resonate? All right. It is quite evident that the one vital factor that dominates this entire activity. So what activity? What activity?
Experiencing life.
Yeah, any activity. Any activity. That the one vital factor. So the one vital factor is underlying all of the activity. It's motivating all of the activity. Do you see it? Where's the little I that's doing something here? It is through the shop floor supervisors, all of these activities themselves. The mental activity is the result only of this universal mental function, this universal mental faculty. Is it mine? Little I?
Borrowed.
It's borrowed. Is that what you said?
Borrowed.
Borrowed. Okay, by giving these definitions, the Lord is on the whole suggesting with a subtle undercurrent of the implications that the eternal self alone is real. Do we have a little of that feeling in this discussion? That everything we're taking to be separate, alone, etc., that mine, I, me, mine, all of this stuff, that it's the universal alone. It's only the capital S self. That's all that's here. Everything is that. Everything is that. Look at anything here. And that all else are delusory superimpositions on it. Therefore, to know the self is to know everything, and having known the eternal as one's own real nature, one is free to act or not to act, and to play or not to play in any of the field of the not self. And an individual who lives in the awareness of this knowledge, ever conscious of the play of the self at all levels of his personality, physical, mental, intellectual, such an individual naturally comes to experience himself as the divine witness, observing the very process of death that clips off layer by layer his self-chosen connections with the not self.
Wow.
So he's saying the one that abides doesn't have the confusion of taking something to be other than the one, other than a principle or subcategory or of the one. Okay.
So you have to know that I is not collapsing in when the moment of death is there. Is that what you're saying? Because everything else is collapsing?
Yeah, you could say something like that. Yeah.
Does that remove the fear?
To
Or how do you...
know yourself and to know what's here removes all fear. Self-realization removes all fear. What to fear at that point? If you have the knowledge that's just been stepped through here, what is there to fear, Hari?
Nothing.
Nothing. Thank you. Absolutely. You're sure? Not something? Not a little thing? Not that spider?
Nothing.
Nothing. Death? You will say to death, "Ha ha! I laugh at you, death. You're not real." You also are an appearance. You might say I was kind of tired of this appearance anyway. Joking about that part. Okay, let's close. All right. Oh, we thought that Swami would give us a deep dive into Krishna's explanation, so he did. So anybody, the Peace Pilgrim is here, and there are a couple more of these. If anybody wants to take some time today, it's a little quieter right now, you know, we look around and we see.
Yeah.
And so we can be a little quieter, we can be reflective. If somebody wants to come back and read this,
What page
we have
is
a few.
this?
Yeah, we'll give the page number. And I know that some of our Sangha joining us online have this translation as well. Page 470, and it's chapter 8, verses 3 and 4. Yeah. Okay, we should close. Is the mind boggled?
I need to take the day off, which means I need to do everything I already decided to do.
What does it mean from a practical standpoint? It means a lot. The end of fear is a thing here. Okay. Oh, page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamhe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rupneva Bandhana Mrityur Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamhe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rupneva Bandhana Mrityur Mukshiyamamritat Om Trayambakam Yajamhe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Orvai Rupneva Bandhana Mrityur Mukshiyamamritat Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, let us abide in thee forever and ever. And below Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, and for all the saints and sages of all the traditions. Okay, let's stand for Arati.